Welcome to a Tuesday evening with B-InPowerD Network and Ashellee Toweh. She is my sister friend. We met, I guess now, look, it's been about a year, right?
Oh, that's crazy.
How it's been a year, right? She and I were both selected to be part of the Mariah Group's Forward Promise Fellowship for Leaders. And I don't think either of us knew how intense it was going to be. Like,
No,
I know I didn't.
I didn't. I didn't know what I was expecting. I had no expectations.
Yeah, I didn't either. And it's crazy because it's a bunch of strangers who work and live in spaces that are naturally distrusting. And we, like 20 of us, came together. All of us stressed the hell out, right? Like every last one of us was like having headaches and stressed the hell out, trying to figure out what life was going to be.
Yeah.
And kind of came together initially in this virtual space. And it
Mm,
was just phenomenal how easy it was to
yeah.
relate to the next person.
Yeah.
So that's where we met a year ago. We were both selected, and I think our cohort was meant to be our cohort. Like the 20 of us were kind of just meant to be together in all of the facets of the things that we do and everything else. But Ashellee is a licensed clinical social worker.
I am.
Yes, and she has very bravely recently launched her own initiative, and it's called A Space of Hope Therapy.
Yes.
Back in January, right? Like this launched within this last quarter.
Friend, a hard launch. Yup.
Yes. So first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations on that and just everything that you do. Tell us about A Space of Hope.
Yeah. First of all, congratulations to you because you did a hard launch.
Yeah, thank you.
And I was blessed to just hear about it when it was in the works. So that was exciting. And just kind of echoing what you said, like I really felt like our cohort was just meant to be. We meshed so well together. And I know we'll talk about community soon, but one big thing I want to say is when it comes to that fellowship, it's like what is understood just didn't need to be said.
Right.
And I never knew healing like that. But a space of hope therapy. So I would say the reason why it's called that is so my co-partner, Courtney Jackson True, shout out to her.
Mhm.
It's really like birthed out of a place of feeling like hope truly is deferred sometimes. And
Mhm.
so I would say so many aspects of our lives, we felt like hope was deferred, hope wasn't coming, hope was hard to tap into, to activate, or even believe and feel.
Mhm.
And a huge part of that was, uh, I would say, trust and also trusting the environment that you're in. And I'm
Mhm.
a really strong believer that it's how you cultivate the space that you're in either provides healing to people, nourishment, um, or stunts growth or whatever else in that
Right.
capacity.
Right.
So,
That part.
yeah, so I would say like that's kind of what birthed out a space of hope and just feeling like truly, it may sound cliche, but just felt like that was like a calling like on my life to create a space where people who had no hope can just have life breathe back onto it,
Mhm.
to activate it again.
That's amazing because especially at a time where you can almost see hope dissipating. Like you could almost see it just leaving our spirits because
Mm,
every day you're reading something daunting. Like I know across my phone today, it was like, and Medgar Evers was removed from, and like it's just this thing where we are, in a very literal sense, being, or there's an attempt to erase who we are and our struggle and our contributions and our loss and our pain, and all of those things are being squashed.
Mm-hmm.
They,
Mm.
it's happening so publicly.
Yeah.
Um, this series for this month is talking about the next generation of leaders, the not so normal extraordinary women
Yeah.
that are really stepping forward in their own ways and in very loud ways in their community.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like it's
Mm-hmm.
it's so necessary. And
Mm-hmm.
it is, I feel like it is the black and brown thing. It is our superpower. It is the essence of who we are, that we sometimes, and most of the time, like, we are silently leading, we are silently paving the way, we are silently encouraging and building and bringing. And that's how I view your position in your community, when I know for sure how difficult it is to find culturally competent people who will hold space for you, who will, you know, take an interest and want to
Mm.
learn who you are and what your struggle is, without assumption and without judgment. So
Mm.
tell us how that translates for you in your respective community.
Yes. First of all, I'm hung up on the words "and want to." Because so many of us can step into different roles of leadership and healing and healers, and um, but truly I feel like it's the motive and it's the heart behind it, that truly wants to and desires to and longs to really connect and be there, and really can um, put your hand in my hand and really say, okay, I'm pulling you up. We're going to go slow. We're going to gently, easy does it. And I just think that something about the Black and Brown community, like you said, like it's our superpower. It's in our DNA. Like just like generational trauma can be passed down, generational strength and hope and resiliency, which is just your bounce back ability, I feel like can be passed down. And one thing about the Black and Brown community, I feel like when it comes to pressure, we cannot not be crushed. Like we only, I feel like, have the ability to keep pushing forward. And so I feel like even if it's in the air, the atmosphere, although we may sense it, it just naturally activates and just comes out. And so I feel like that just kind of naturally draws each other to each other, and becomes infectious.
Mhm.
I was just telling one of my clients a little bit ago, they came into my office and just kind of stressed about the political climate that's forever changing right now. And in the midst of her like just sobbing, and she's a person of color, and she just looked at me and she's like, I'm hopeful, I want to do something, I just don't know what to do, like right now, where to go. And just so naturally, because I feel like that's just what in us, just like it was so natural for her to say, I want to do something. I said, our rest is radical,
Mm.
rest is resistance, our healing, I feel like, is resistance in its own way, and especially if everything else is chaotic. um, it speaks volumes when you can be the person that's like steadfast and just and operating from a place of rest, not just like heels up, kick back, but When your heart and your mind and your soul, I feel like, feels steady and connected and on a rhythm. And that, I feel like, drives me to do what I do so naturally, because I feel like it's in my veins, and I feel like I can't help but tell another person that, of like, it's in your veins, this is what you do. Let me show you how to do that, because that's what we need. That's radical in itself.
It's crazy because I've had 3 conversations, right? And I feel like they're all interconnected in a way because we in each conversation we've gotten to this point where we
Mm,
have this talk about rest. And I think this might be the first time someone's used the word radical with rest.
mm,
I'm going to lift the same thing I did in those conversations.
yeah.
I don't want our rest. I don't want our keep it moving. I don't want our push forward and push through to be to come from a place of trauma.
Mhm,
That is the thing that I want to see change for us
mhm,
because I think as women of color, we often move in a space that is driven by fear, and that fear creates the radicalness of us. It
mhm,
creates the drive, it creates the push, it creates, be empowered. It creates a space of hope, right? It's the trauma of all of the things that we have experienced in life, all of the things we've seen as children that have made us so finite
mhm, mhm,
about
mhm.
what it is that we do and don't want to do. And, I don't, I'm by far not a Debbie Downer, right? Like that's not my personality.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, I have hope in us.
Mhm,
And I have hope in us because we've been here before. And historically, in my 47 years, in the stories that my people have told, in the perseverance of my family and friends and people who I've met along the journey, we have survived, right?
mhm, mhm,
We'll keep saying it's our time to thrive. And I think that many of us will get there. We will see that.
mhm.
But I can't help but to think about at what expense.
Yeah. And I would say to that, um, I feel like for the things almost worth living for, I feel like comes at a cost because of the value. And I feel like if the thing is not valuable, then there's like not much of a cost or not much of a risk.
Mhm.
I think about what we did in our fellowship and have those coaches. And I
Mm,
remember my coach, the theme was like leading from a place of love and trust. So almost shifting that from, yeah, I mean, resiliency is birthed out of a place of trauma
mhm,
and fear, but then shifting it to, um, almost like I just love me and I love you too much to leave you here in this particular space.
mhm,
And the cost of you staying here, if it's gonna be led solely by fear, I feel like there's a level of those feelings that are truly healthy. They're all
mhm,
Every feeling is an emotion is valuable. There is a level of fear that we do need, a level of pressure that you do need, a level of healthy stress to kind of keep us like, okay, we
mhm,
gotta get on this. And I'm so I appreciate you for sharing that, because I think some people shy away from saying like, oh my gosh, it's fear, but like, no, there's a level of that is healthy.
mhm,
Um, However, I at least for myself, I feel like getting the narrative of when during our coaching sessions, and she's like, what would it look like for you specifically to lead from a place of love and trust, and not just like the fluffy la la, I feel these positive feelings, but just like to the soul of just the cost and the value of you is just worth too much to be stuck in this place and to be stuck there. Um, and so because of that, the push ahead, I feel like is worth it.
Mhm.
It's just, I feel like from where you're pushing from, I feel like the cost is different.
Yeah.
Versus if it's just solely, I feel like out of fear and trauma, versus I'm gonna come from a place of love and trust, but from truly within, when
Yeah.
everything is aligned. Um, that's just kind of the thoughts that come to me when you were sharing that.
Yeah, I appreciate that insight because I think that was part of the work we did as a cohort.
Yeah.
Um, but I also think that of what I know of our cohort individually, I think that's the work that we've all kind of been on that journey, right?
Yeah.
Like figuring out how to transform and transcend those things that ignited the fire in us, right? Because the fire was lit.
Yeah.
Really transforming that to that healthy space and
Mhm.
that healthy growth. You take on a lot of people's stuff.
Mhm.
Like, I think that is the nature of what I do in nursing, it's the nature of what you do in therapy.
Yeah.
We hold a lot of people's things.
Yeah.
How do you take care of you?
Yes. I feel like that's a question that pays because it needs to be. Everyone needs to be reminded of how you take care of yourself. And so I would say, even down to the most practical ways, I feel like there is a healthy amount of burden bearing that we do need to carry the other person,
Mhm.
to just be held in that space.
Mhm.
But I feel like in our roles, we do need to know when to put you down. And when that time with you is all done, our time with you is truly, it's all done for now. I'll still hold you in mind and heart as I plan for the next session. But everything that I carried and we just kind of shifted around, I have to put down, I feel like mentally, physically, and just solely. And so for me, what that looks like is, for me personally, I lead on my faith a lot. And really, I feel like life has just kind of squeezed and pushed me into a space where I needed to value solitude,
Mm.
and quietness,
Mm.
uh, to empty, like to just like detox and empty out from. I do believe that we do carry each other's energy, and there's like that exchange happening. And sometimes you do just kind of have to purify, um, in different capacities. What that means for you, for me, it's just in my time of prayer. It's in my time of, okay, am I carrying something, or did I attach myself to something in that moment with this person, especially how I felt for them, and extracted. And truly, solitude has become vital. Putting up emotional boundaries.
Yeah.
Maybe there are just things I can't engage in on a regular basis like I used to. Whether that's like social media or the news or what have you, like, and even just being on the phone, with people, there are just certain conversations that I may no longer could dive into, or after I'm with a session, I may not be able to carry my friend on the phone. Or
Mhm.
at the time, I done carried so much, and I might need to be held in my bathtub for a certain period of time with my bath salt. And I just feel like all of those things to me like have been important, but I can't erase solitude and I can't erase um, journaling because
Mhm.
truly, naturally, my thoughts go bananas. There's a lot happening in here. And having ADHD, these thoughts are bananas anyway. So I need to take them here to the paper to just categorize and sort and help me process. Um, I would say those are like my biggest and outside. I gotta be outside. I gotta open up a window. I need to feel the sunlight. I need to feel a breeze. I don't care if it's snowing outside. Like I need nature to wake me up again. Uh, because some sessions is deep. We dive real deep and it gets real dirty because life is real dirty and muddy. And if I made a commitment to you that I'm here to put on my boots and we're gonna dive into these sewers and keep looking, I'm gonna do that. But I also need to be mindful, like, okay, how much did I take up on today, and what do I need to do to guard myself up, guard my own heart, so I'm not passion fatigued. Yeah, I can go on and on about some self care tips, but I would definitely say solitude and emotional boundaries, spiritual boundaries, I feel
Mhm.
like have been the theme lately for myself.
I think that's great because I know I learned vicarious grief the hard way.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's something that present day I talk about a lot, right? Because I like when I came out of nursing school, I immediately went into jails and group homes and all of these spaces of traumatized children, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was hurt children who were then hurting other people.
Mm-hmm.
And feeling like I was going to lose my skills because that was the space I was in, I went into pediatric hospice.
Yeah. Mm.
And as a brand new nurse, and strong person and could totally handle it. But then I started feeling like I'm so overwhelmed and I've absorbed so much
Yeah.
grief from these grieving families. And I remember back then, this is like 15 years ago now, I would tell my agency, I need a walkie talkie. Like, I need a kid that's going to live. Like, every few
Mm-hmm.
kids, like, I need a kid that's going to live. And I had to kind of unpack that and define it and figure it out. And that was when I learned about vicarious grief. Like, it's not a figment of my imagination. I am grieving naturally differently than, the parents are grieving, but I'm feeling it and
Yeah.
I was wearing it and I
Mm-hmm.
was sad, because of that. And so I can't imagine being in your space where, session after session after session, it's someone else's issues and it's nice to hear that you figured out your formula to not holding that. But on a different note, you said bath salts, and I almost busted out laughing, and I know you know why.
Exactly. Why?
It's
Especially
not a joke. We were at our first retreat. This is the first time we met each other in person, all
yeah,
20 of us.
yeah.
And we had some body work done and some healers there.
Mhm.
They gave us this beautiful like little pouch of bath salts. And everybody was teasing me because I overpack. I always got a carry-on and I have a check bag and the whole nine.
Yeah.
And they came with their little book bags and they came with their little carry-on bags and everything else. And they were so proud of themselves. They got all their clothes in one little bag. And then they went through security with them little bath salts.
They got tore up. They got tore, and they smell. They smell so good.
Yes.
I already knew.
Yes. And so my bath salts came home with me. Just like end of the story, moral of the story is be like me and overpack and make sure you have a check bag because you can put all that stuff that's not gonna make it through security in your check bag because they had to throw their bath salts away and I didn't. So that's why I was laughing when she said bath salts. But that's great. I think that it is amazing that you know what it is that you need to do. What do you think? First of all, tell me what community means to you. Before we even talk about who you are as a community, tell me what community means to you.
I'm going to even say, before I even say that, I'm going to say there are times I do not follow my own regimen. I just want to throw that.
You're going to out yourself?
Right. I do not follow my own regimen. There are some times that I still am reminded um, that I may need a moment to myself, or I may need to check in. And I would say that kind of leads to what is community, because without community, sometimes, not even sometimes, without community, I truly feel like I would not be where I am, without my community. I feel like in westernized culture, there's like a very high lenience, or just like a high value of independence, and a little bit less on interdependence. And so to me, community, my village, your tribe, whatever you want to call them, like, community is healing. And that's something that I learned in the fellowship, was what it was like to heal in community. I felt like I knew how to heal by myself, just because life and the things I've gone through, how I grew up, how I was raised, and all these things. Like, I knew how to be independent and heal on my own and keep my stuff to myself. I knew how to chip out a couple of pieces to some people, but not everybody. But being in an atmosphere, in a space with like 20 some odd people, I was like, oh, I don't know how to do that. And so that was like my personal quest of truly learning how to heal in community. And one big thing that was helpful, and what could feel almost like the opposite of being a therapist, was not talking, but feeling understood. And I'm really heavy on some things that are understood just doesn't have to be said. And there were so many things, I feel like, as a person of color, that you carry, that you have been constantly explaining and trying to make sense and being understood and this, that, and the third. And being in the fellowship was the first time I didn't have to say none of that. I didn't have to say anything. I just showed up. And it wasn't until, I would say, towards the end of the first retreat, kind of, we all began to ask each other, oh my God, what do you even do? As your career, like, what do you do? Who are you? And not even, it's like, who are you in your vocation? Because we learned each other who we are, just heart, soul, and body, just as a person. And I never encountered that on a regular basis. Because for me, I would even say I knew what it was like to be hurt in a community, and I knew what it was like to even be hurt by my own Black and brown. And so to be in an atmosphere around like-minded people, who, everyone, like you said, we all came in there tired, burnt out, headache, stomach, diarrhea, whatever. Like, we all had symptoms of we barely hold a bar. And to not have to say much, but to just kind of be and really share our heart's desires with one another, dive deep into our pain, and no one fixed it. It was just, you were carried. I feel like that's another part of what community means to me, is being held.
Mhm.
Sometimes you need to be molded and things need to happen, but truly, I feel like just what permeates through people's pores of just their desire to love and heal, I feel like is healing in itself. It was like people's presence, silence, and just to be held. That was a whole new level, I feel like, of community that I haven't experienced before that was life altering. um, yeah. And because of that, it just made me even strive even more to be like, yes. And I just want to
Yep.
just
Yeah.
be a healing, be a space, and just be.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think like for me, it was the same thing. It was the first time we didn't lead with the platitudes of white supremacy and capitalism.
mhm,
Like
mhm.
I missed the first day of the first convening.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um, I was worried. I was worried that not arriving when everyone else arrived meant
Mhm.
that everybody had a head start on these strangers. 'Cause I'm an introvert, right? Like I'm an introvert that operates an extroverted world that exhausts me. And I tell everybody, invite me to everything and just know I'm not coming to anything. But if you don't that
That t-shirt. That's a shirt.
like if you don't invite me, just know I'm gonna be mad. But don't really expect me, but you
Yeah,
don't have to invite me,
yeah,
and so I I probably value solitude too much, like in real life, like being alone and not needing to talk to anybody. Um, and I don't know, I don't always feel like I mesh well in
mm,
spaces. Like
yeah.
my neuro spiciness kind of activates in spaces, and I'm just like, okay. So all these people got to know each other for like a full day and a half without me, and now here I come. But it was so great, and it was so completely the opposite. And then I remember in our closing ceremony in the graduation, I remember being sad the day that I arrived.
Mm,
And we still had 4 days together,
yeah.
but I remember projecting to the end and feeling like this is ending and I'm
Mm,
sad now. Like that, those were actually some of the first words I spoke. Like, I'm
yeah.
sad today because I know 4 days from now,
Mm,
I'm leaving.
yeah.
It was about being with you guys and being able to rest, like having uninhibited rest and not having to be on and not having to show up and having permission to miss 3 sessions and just stay in bed or, sit at the fire.
Mm,
Like I had permission to be and do anything it was that I needed to do for my body in that moment,
mm,
right? And I just don't know another time or space that life allows that to happen for you, right?
mm.
So outside of packaged healing, that's what I'm going to call it, right? Like outside of someone
Yeah.
cultivating that space for you,
Yeah.
how do we create that? And
Mm.
ooh,
Oh, no one understands how amazing that fellowship was unless you're a part of it. I just want to throw that out there. When you say packaged like healing and rest, I'm like, yeah, y'all, we got compensated. We were in the best of the best places, any and everything you wanted. Even if they had to run to the store and get it, they were upset if you felt guilty about asking and you getting all the work kinks done. it was, I just want to say like the peak of my rest experience was missing a session because I could barely go on. No one really, everyone was like at some point like I deuced out, and I was by the pool, and I had my meditation music on and my headphones, and I cocked out like I was, that was the deepest sleep I ever slept. And I woke up. I hate bugs. I hate bugs.
Me too.
Literally. There was a bee that was chilling on my toes because my feet was up. Can I say I was so rested and at peace? I didn't even care.
Oh no, I would have cared.
So that's how rested I was. I didn't even move. I let it chill. I said, "Hey, what's up?" I gave it a name, and it just chilled on my toes. And I went back to sleep. That's how at peace and rested I was. And so to recreate that part, I feel like you need some coins and you need a resort. But I feel like the bones though was, I feel like something you said was having permission.
Yeah.
And truly that's something I carry even in my sessions,
Mhm.
where I tell people if you had a permission slip to give yourself permission to do XYZ, what would that permission be?
Mhm.
Because there I had to give myself a lot of permission because you're in every day, right? Like if you're doing the work and all this stuff, there's limitations, barriers, and all the things, right? And so this was more of like if you could just dream it and write it and fantasize about it and cash it in, it was yours. And so I would say like I feel like that's how we need to live,
Mhm.
is to truly know that yes, there are going to be some things that are going to be barriers.
Mhm.
However, internally, interpersonally, um, I feel like that all goes to how we then manifest our lives of, if I'm going to take up space, I'm going to take up space. If I'm going to expand, I'm going to expand. If I'm going to give my permission to be unapologetic about it, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to continue to do that. If
Mhm.
I'm going to give myself permission to let go, to forgive, and to release, I'm going to do that. Because the cost to not do any of that is still way too high.
Mhm.
So I would just say like how to recreate some true rest is taking limits off. I feel like even the stories that we tell ourselves and the stories that we make up about people, like even that's limiting, and
Mhm.
giving yourself permission to release that. Um, because what's the cost of
Mhm.
keeping yourself there? Um, that yeah, I can go on, but truly, I feel like it's really what you said is giving yourself permission and fill in the blank.
I remember when I started giving myself permission for things, it had nothing to do with like evolving, and it has so much more to do with the number of children I had. And it
Mm,
was um one kid was easier, right? Not easy, but easier. And
mhm.
then two kids, and then three kids. And damn it, by the time I got to four kids, it was like F them dishes. You know, like,
Ooh, right.
yeah, and that's when I remember being okay with not being a neat freak, being okay with, you know,
Mm,
the laundry basket that we all have someplace
right.
that never gets folded and you just pull an outfit out as you go along.
Yeah.
Um, because it's almost like it's you or it, right? Whatever that proverbial it is. It's either you or it. Either you're gonna survive this or it's going to overpower you, and you're always going to be chasing the conquering of it. And I remember that feeling,
Yeah.
chasing the laundry and chasing the dishes and chasing the newest spill on the carpet and all of those things. And I think that we all have a spill, right? We all have a basket of laundry that we're carrying around with us, and you're constantly chasing getting that basket of laundry folded, whatever that represents in your life. And I encourage people to say F the laundry, like whatever that is, just let it go, because one, it's liberating.
Yeah.
It's super liberating. But two, you weren't called to be on this earth in the space that you're in the community that you're in, and spend your life chasing a thing, because where we're supposed to sit, where we're supposed to live, it's not going to be that hard. And I remember in December when you were talking about a space of hope. You're like, I'm exhausted, but I'm exhausted because I'm working that job and I still have, I'm building my clientele. And you were like, I'm ready to jump. I have my clientele. And you may have been tired. Space was prepared for you. That, to me, would have told you what you mean to community. So what did you learn in that experience?
What did I learn in that experience? I would say I needed to just embrace and embody what was happening, that I was needed, I was valuable, and that there is just parts of me, how all I'm created, the strange, the awkward, the whatever, is what is needed for the people who I'm attracted to. They're attracted to me. They need something that I have something they need, and vice versa. And I think sometimes there's like this false humility of like, no, like I'm just here, I show up, but like we have strengths and we have weaknesses. But I was ashamed, I feel like, of me for so long, of just all that I was and how I'm designed and wired. And like you said, like it was like I had the clientele, I had everything I needed. And so what ended up happening was I had a date in mind and I said, okay, I'm gonna give myself, technically it was April 4th. And at that time, where did we go? In December? That was like early December. I'm thinking April 4th. And things was moving. And then by January, February, I was barely holding. I was like, the rest that I just had is gone. And I was, again, doing nothing that I needed to do the rest of it. I was putting Band-Aids on. Basically, it was like get a little meditation, a little scripture, a little something to hold me over. And it truly, and so I gave him my resignation at April 4th, and even that felt so long. And my boss was like, girl, like, why are you giving us such a long notice? Like, we appreciate it, but like, that's very generous of you. And I was like, no, I just want to, finish off well. But a week passed, and I was in my little cubicle because I was working literally at 7 a.m. and between my full-time job and my private practice, I wasn't getting done until around 9:30 p.m. at night. And that was every day. And Saturdays, I did my private practice. So some days I was, I have a husband, and some days I'd be like, oh, I have a husband. Hello. Hey, how are you? Gotta go. I have a telehealth. Good to see you though. And so I text him because I was about to crash out. I was just in my cubicle and I was so overwhelmed. And I said, "You good if I like leave early?" And so um, he texted me back immediately. He never really texted at work because he's an engineer and it's just who he is. And so he texted back immediately and was like, "Girl, do what you want. I'm full support." And I upped that date till March 14th, which then was gonna be like 2 weeks from that moment. And so in that moment, after that, I felt good. But to me, I felt like God just kind of spoke to me in a moment and was like, "Girl, if I gave you something to do, why wait?
Mm, mm,
Why are you waiting? Like for what?"
mm,
Um, and I was like, "True." And even if you're not religious, if you have something, why wait?
mm,
Why are you waiting? Truly. Sure, there's like logistics to work out, but like you said, I just needed to move. Um, and I needed to take this invisible limitation on because no one gave me some rule book and said you need to do these things and follow it this way. These are things I created for myself. Like these are pressures that didn't exist. And I just need to embrace, like, girl, you're needed and we got things to do. And this 9 to 5 with these people is just not for you right now. um, and so that's just kind of, I would feel like how I began to see myself a
mm,
little bit more valuable and take myself seriously and just embrace the fact that like I'm needed and
mm.
that's fine and that's okay. That's not a hierarchy thing. That's just I'm needed. You're needed. We need each other truly. And so why wait?
Yeah. You said a few things I want to go back to. First of all, that professional guilt is real. And I think it exists for women of color, people of color in a very different way.
Mm-hmm.
Because we feel this responsibility to spaces.
Yeah.
And I think we embody this thing and we never want to burn bridges. We were taught that, right? Never burn bridges.
Right, right.
And I don't think you should, unless you have to. Like, I don't think you should burn bridges. But the other part of it is, it's like the never leave home without clean underwear on thing, because you never know what's going to happen. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of goes back to that fear thing and what people will think of me if I only get 2 weeks notice.
Mm.
Notice. Like you went in there and gave homies 3 months notice on leaving. Like what?
After this, and never will do it again. After this.
But the other thing you said is you created boundaries that didn't exist. And I
Mm.
think they do exist for us. They exist in that space that has continuously been told to us we have to show deference to, right?
Mm. Yeah.
Whatever the to is, you have to show deference to your employer, your relationship, like all of these spaces that we as women, as Black women especially, have been taught that we have to show deference to. And I would say probably 4 years ago, I gave myself permission to never be unhappy at a job. Not regular work stress, not I signed on for this job and this is what comes with it. Somebody that calls me at 2 o'clock in the morning because they want vacation. That some things are par for the course, but that true visceral unhappiness in a space that I'm in, I gave myself permission to not do that. And
Mm,
sometimes I have written the resignation letter that said, you have created a hostile work environment, and today is my last day.
mhm,
You know, I've
mhm,
attempted to reach to find resolution in this space, and we've had conversations on this day, this day, this day, and there has been no resolve, and I no longer can navigate this hostile work environment. So
mhm.
today, right now, very sorry for what that does, to this building, but today is my last day. And I wish people felt like they had permission to do that more.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I get that, like, complexities happen, right? Like, mouths to feed, bills to pay,
Mhm. That's
uh,
right.
truly. But then I would say to that, and sometimes I have said that to people, the clients, the friends, and I said, all that is real. But the cost of you just staying is too high, because then when you say you stay, that all that stress wears and tears on your body. Now we got heart failure, heart attack, panic attack, passed out, or no longer here with us. Um, that position is still gonna go
Yep.
open, and it's gonna be filled, whether you were there or not.
Yep.
Um, and I think of, I won't say specifics, but I think of someone really close to me where the cost of them staying in the job is too high. The way they were being treated by management, was terrible.
Mhm.
And cussing and carrying on, and it was just so to them, and it was just so much. And it's like, wow, there's just no amount of money truly that can put a price on a person, your peace, your mental state of mind. And that is one door that closes. Doesn't mean that it's permanent. It's just closed for now. It's something else can open later if you allow yourself to be open to that.
Mhm.
You have a resume for a reason, or you're building a resume for a reason.
Mhm.
Something you said about, like, we have the like, I had those things because someone told me, and I think that's the thing. Sometimes people drop stuff off to us, and if we just had a good look at into our lives of, like, what is actually mine and
Mhm.
what is actually somebody else's, or something that someone just dropped off to me because who told me X, Y, and Z that I actually needed to be here. Um, and that, again, a shut door for now is now. That doesn't mean it's a permanent state. Um, it's just a temporary moment in time, and then it passes. I say that a lot in therapy when it comes to emotions and mindset, that truly the big impact of that feeling of fear is supposed to last for 14 seconds. Anything after that is now a mindset that we have, that we're feeling in our brain. And so if we could just understand and take a moment to say, okay, what's a system that has been created that has put me in places where I feel stuck,
Mhm.
where was only meant to be there temporary, to pass, so I can keep my peace and my rest and be present for community, or just be present so I can be held and carried.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes. Yes, that makes perfect sense to me. Um, we're almost at time. Before I give you the last word, I want to publicly thank you for being part of my community, because you're stuck with me now, like forever and ever and ever and ever.
I appreciate it.
And just for doing this with me, because this is actually my third episode.
Mm.
So you are number three. Um, and you know, I've told the story before, but I'll say it again. I was actually at retreat when I woke up with B-InPowerD. I was in a space in December. We were out there on December 6th. I knew that my transition day was January 31st, and I had no idea what I was going to do.
Yeah.
And I knew I would be on a medical leave, for the duration between the middle of December and when I left my previous position. And I was like, okay, so what's next?
Yeah.
And I felt very boxed in and
Mm.
very stuck by that situation. And it was you guys who were
Mm.
like, you can do whatever it is that you want to do. And, it's hard to sometimes see the horizon over the mountain, right? Like it's so daunting in that moment. But it was the community
Mm.
Forward Promise and the community that I have privately outside of the cohort, and so many people who poured into me to say, like, you have the capability and or everything you need to build and to have partnership with people who are now coming on my podcast and telling their stories and how they contribute to community really means a lot to me. So thank you for doing this. Thank you for saying yes,
Mm.
and talking and sharing all of your gems. Um, as a leader in the community, as someone who in your respective community pours into and takes from and is in relationship, um, tell us how you feel we can replicate those things. I think we all need to build those respective communities in this time, in this space and place that we're in. Um, and it requires relationships. So what
Mm.
does relationship mean and how do we create that so that we can feel homeostasis?
Yeah. First of all, thank you, girl, for doing this, for stepping out, and for creating this platform for people to just feel so belonged, truly.
Thank
Um,
you.
I really appreciate you. And I was honored when I got that text. I said, shut your mouth. Yes, thank you. A baby. It's an honor. It's a joy to be here. And it's healing. So so thank you.
Mm.
Um, when it comes to how to create that in relationships, girl, I feel like that's another podcast episode. But in the time that I do have, uh, I would say the thing that just comes to my gut is I feel like in order to create those things, I feel like you have to be those things. And it's almost like you need to be the space that you want to create and be the relationship that you want. And that if whatever that bridge is that gets you to there, I feel like is what is the thing that needs to be taken care of so you can get there. So your heart, your mind, and soul aligns there. Um, because you can have community easily. I feel like because of social media, we can create communities effortlessly. um,
Is it the right one though?
exactly. That's the thing, and I feel like to get there, you got to figure out at the end of the day, what are the core values of you?
Mm.
Um, and when you can figure that out, what are the things that will anchor you and ground you?
Mm.
I feel like that's how you can filter, almost have filters to filter out what then would be the right community for me, what then will, and who is like that. Um, I feel like that helps us create healthy environments because then we know, okay, at the end of the day, if this conversation or this person doesn't feel loving, trusting, um, we don't. I value people who pull out the best of me, and I pull out the best of them, and it's not nourishing, and we kind of rub each other the wrong way. I feel like that's a telling story. And so I would say the long story made long is if you can figure out the core, the values and anchors that ground you and become that, I feel like that's how you can begin to weed out, okay, these things don't align, but this aligns. And how can I begin to pull that in and to be that? I know for me, my life, my story was about some deep core shame. And so I needed to overcome that to step out. I was hiding, so I needed to step out. And so I say that to say it goes beyond being an introvert or extrovert. Like sometimes shame treats you hidden. And so sometimes you have to be friendly and step out to make those connections because having friendship trauma, I don't think a lot of us talk about that in a relationship trauma.
That's a whole nother podcast.
That is a whole other podcast. That's real. Healing from that is hard.
You just called me out talking about sometimes you got to step out and like, are you saying I have to be invited and show up to the party sometimes?
Yeah, girl, you do at least for 5 minutes and have permission to flee. Have permission to flee at the end.
I know. I appreciate you. I so do. This was a great conversation. Thank you for being vulnerable and just sharing, all of your insight. Thank you for joining us. It's been a great talk. Join me again on Saturday for our closeout conversation for Women's History Month as we transition to Autism Awareness Month, which is one of my favorite times. We will be highlighting the power that exists in neurodivergence and the power that exists in just being different out loud and being a-okay with this. So keep watching, keep tuning in, share, like all of our platforms. And again, thank you so much, Ashley.
Thank you.
Good night, guys.